something that we think is very important to share with you today. We'll tell you more about us in a moment if you don't know who we are. And what we want to talk about is, are you part of what we call the silent majority who is feeling torn apart by the stress, the conflict, and what we consider low vibrational energy and the fear cycle that someone else is making? And maybe you're in the place where you want to find inner peace and access to love in times of extreme turmoil. And if you feel like you or someone else may be caught in a fear cycle that someone else is making, maybe aware of the fact that right now everyone has a microphone today, whether they've done the inner work or not. And if you want to be part of a conversation that has a healing effect instead of the polarity and the divisiveness that's going on, and also giving strength to our enemies whose goal is to destroy our collective strength. So here's where the story gets interesting, and you're going to see pictures in a moment. But 2 weeks ago, Vivian jumped in her car and began a vision quest that began here in San Diego, and she asked herself the primary question: what's mine to do, and what's mine to do to make a contribution to resolve the conflict and unrest? And she wanted to ask herself a big question. What was that, Vivian?
What is mine to do?
Right. And she drove, first of all, to Sedona and then on to Santa Fe, New Mexico. And several days later, myself and our son, our 18-year-old son, or almost 18, to connect with her. And we spent time in the mountains, in the desert, and connected in nature. Santa Fe, you'll see in a moment, is unbelievably beautiful if you haven't been there. So if you feel like you're in need of a reset, some kind of a reinvention or a reboot right now, whether it started before or during the pandemic, I'd say you're in the right place at the right time. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to interview her, and she's going to share her story. And by the way, if you're watching this live or recorded, you can feel free to post your comments and your feedback in real time and share it with also anyone who you think may enjoy this conversation. And one more thing, one of the things that I asked Vivian to do is think ahead of some tools that you can use in your own personal life and your business if you want to be part of the communication or a communication that has a healing effect. So, hello.
Hello.
Good morning, I should say. And let's begin with why the vision question in the first place. What was going on in your life that made you just decide to pop in the car and go on a long ride that may last days or even weeks?
Yeah, so $15 in a Prius. As a founder of Just Like My Child Foundation, which is work that we've been doing for over 14 years, this global pandemic really, it brought a stop to very much of our ability to get out and to work with kids and specifically adolescent girls in Africa. And we were working with Native Americans in the U.S. and beginning some work in India as well. And when, you kind of are this full steam ahead person and you get just this wall in front of you, like I think so many of us have, and then start to pay attention to what's going on and what we're sort of being force-fed in the media with regards to skepticism and doubt, and we are doubting our institutions and our government, and there's so much polarity and divisiveness. And then I think really for me, the pinnacle was the again, expose on the racism in this country and in the world. And it just so deeply impacted me, the low vibrational energy, the hate and the divisiveness and the cancel culture where people who have worked for lifetimes are erased in a matter of moments. And I thought, what can I do? What is mine to do in this moment? Who can I be in the matter? And my highest values are contribution and connection. So my thought was, only thing that I can do right now is raise my vibrational energy. And, I'd been sort of in the trenches for so long that I had lost sight of God and my connection to God. And so in my heart, what I really wanted to do was romance God, take God out on a date and, have the opportunity to dance with bliss and that connection that I've always gotten from nature. And so it was kind of like I just got catapulted out of my space in my white chair that I'd been sitting in for a couple of months and got into the white Prius and went for a drive.
Right. And maybe for folks, I'll just share this with you. Vivian and I have been married almost 20 years. And one thing I've learned after living with her, being with her over this time, the way she started the foundation, the way she started some of her biggest moves is she just gets up in the middle of the night and says, I have to blank. And my first reaction early on in our marriage was, no, or how's that going to affect me? Or, I went into my me cycle, how that's going to, I'm going to have a reduction in intimacy or whatever it was. I had fears that popped up. And where's she going to go? Is she going to run away? And instead, now I absolutely embrace it. Whenever she has one of these moments, I am all in, and I know something magnificent is around the corner, and I just trust it. But I really didn't know if she was going to be gone for days or weeks. And she's like, I don't know, I'm just going to start driving. It turned out that things ended up working out where we ended up connecting. But with that, do you want to share some of the pictures and take us on a little journey about what happened as well? Because I think that'll at least center us, and we'll talk more about some of the big takeaways, but we could do it through the story of imagery. Is that okay with you?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, I just also want to add it sort of this recall to nature, this remembering. It was sort of stacked on top of this work that I did many years ago. I had the incredible opportunity to work for Deepak Chopra, and I had an idea for a book because I was working in my garden so much and just kept being sort of knocked upside the head every day when I went to my garden and saw God at work in the magic and miracle of what springs from the earth, and had an opportunity to write 12 lessons on life I learned from my garden, spiritual guidance from the vegetable patch. And I'll never forget, I said to Deepak, I have an idea for a book. And he was like, well, write it. Yep. And I did. And so this has been this yearning to get back in nature. It is, Joni Mitchell said in Woodstock, we are stardust, we are golden, and we've got to get ourselves back into the garden. And, it's the Garden of Eden, and it's that bliss and that connection, and removing the illusion that we are separate and that we are separate from one another. And I think that's the thing that was hurting me so bad, was this conflict that I was seeing and the separation. So let's take a look at the pictures.
Okay, great. I'll switch over as soon as you hit your play button. There we go. What are we looking at?
So I never intended to be gone for several weeks, but knew it was going to be at least a short journey. And here I'm just driving into Sedona, Arizona, and I'd highly recommend going there if you haven't had the opportunity. And what I love about Sedona is it's just like such a little show off. Everywhere you look, it's pretty, and it gets prettier no matter where. And I don't know why this isn't.
Did you hit play slideshow?
I did.
Oh, that's weird. Okay, yeah. Oh, you're just selected the one, so select all of them. I think it's just because one picture was selected.
All right, let's see what happens now.
So there you go. Nope, you have to do a select all when you're in the pictures there. I see just one is highlight, so do it Command A, select all, and then hit your play slideshow. There you go.
All this technology.
There we go.
All right, there's Sedona again. Okay, there we are, driving in, unbelievably beautiful. And no matter where you look, the colors, the light, the shading, and a lot of people were like, "Oh my gosh, you're traveling, it's dangerous." And I don't think I really encountered 5 people while I was on the road. So it was a really solo journey and so beautiful. And the next morning after I drove in, I went to Cathedral Rock, which is one of the most beautiful locations and usually the most heavily trafficked. But I had the opportunity to be here by myself. And like I like to say, I have no idea how to take selfies.
Yeah, it's a fine selfie. Look at that background.
Oh, just so beautiful, and really had the opportunity to get the energy. And they say that the biggest energetic vortexes are in Sedona. And you can think what you want, but when you're there, you just get wrapped up in them immediately.
Right on.
And then I had the opportunity to drive from Sedona.
Who's that handsome fellow?
To Santa Fe, New Mexico, and we went on a couple of hikes in the Aspen trails just outside of Santa Fe. And this again was such a magnificent experience to be amidst these aspens that are so magnificent, and the quiet and the silence. And I don't know if you can see behind me, but there are thousands of aspens. It's not just a hill.
Yeah, it does. It looks like grass, but it's
just each individual monument to silence and perseverance and connection. And here's Mike we found some babbling brooks, and he's just so drawn to water and to everything that lives in the whole ecosystem of any brook or stream or ocean or lake. Really defines him. And I don't know, is that the one that babbles?
I don't know if there's one. I don't remember. Right. Yeah, we have a babbling brook picture in there, the slow-mo. I think it's coming up.
And here we are within the aspens, and I just really felt drawn to sit there and breathe in the silence. And as I so clearly saw, there's no Twitter here, there's no Facebook, there's no TikTok, and all of that stuff that we think is so important, that we think needs to have our attention every day. I just got to release that this is really, here's the babbling brook.
Yeah.
I got to release that this is not who we are.
Right.
And who we are is a representation and a reflection of unity and consciousness.
Yeah.
And here we got our son Zach to come out on a hike with us and really get into nature himself. And then Zach and I drove to Boulder, which he had never even gotten to see, and he's going to CU Boulder. He got waylaid by the quarantine. We couldn't make it to the campus, but everywhere you turn in Boulder is just a calling to settle in and to cool down and be part of the moment. So beautiful. And then we had the opportunity to drive back from Colorado through Utah. This is a side of the road view. Went to the Zion National Park, mouth of Zion, and just everywhere is so much majesty. And then we came home to the crazy cat, who we're going to talk about.
Cat. Yeah. So one thing that I will reflect on that I really got hit with as I was watching that again is I remember when we were in one of those spots with the aspens in particular, and you and I were just sitting down, and you had a big cry, and I can remember looking into the ground and the earth and just really experiencing the fractal nature of the universe, where I saw infinity through the microcosm, and then of course at night the lights and the stars were so amazing there too. There's not a lot of light pollution in Santa Fe, but just experiencing that absolute depth of oneness where you could sink in and meditate into the smallest particles and feel creation. And it's like you're looking backwards into the universe when you look through all the little critters and all the life and the water and the movement of the water. And then feeling and looking at, just feeling the trees, as simple as it sounds, just how solid and majestic, and really feeling into the roots. And It was just a really deep, meaningful experience. And I know you said something about there was a mythical experience you had that you described to me about experiencing God, and I can't remember how the story went, but do you remember what that was?
It's Be Here Now.
Okay, yeah. Talk a little bit about that and show the book for people who aren't familiar with Be Here Now as well.
So Ram Dass, who started out as a nice Jewish boy from New York, started out with pursuing psychedelic experiences, and then realized that really all of that connection with God was available to him through silence and study and discipline. And he went to India and he really studied Hindu mythology. And there was an incredible, and I've been reading this book. It's kind of crazy because he basically has all of his lectures that he's illustrated in the book, and it's dense. It really, really takes focus and discipline to have an idea of what he's really trying to get at. And there was this page, and I was reading it, and I just remember I had this experience in Sedona, and then I read this page again. You know, I keep opening up and rereading because I don't remember where I left off. And I just would love to share it right now. So it's really where, thank you. It's really where Ram Dass is explaining that Mother Nature is feminine, and that it is really the pathway to God, that she is the pathway to God. So he writes, and it is the explanation of a myth. She is the veil, nature. And at some point, she is Sita, who is a Hindu goddess, I will assume. Sita stands aside on the jungle path so Ram's brother can see Ram. Ram is God. Sita is Ram's wife, and Lakshman is Ram's brother. And they're going along a jungle path, and it is God who is Ram, and Sita behind him, and then the brother Lakshman. And Lakshman can't see his brother, who is God, because of this woman, Sita, who walks between them. Every now and then, she just moves just a little to one side so Lakshman can see God. And this just touches me so deeply because it really is nature, Mother Nature, the feminine, is the portal to unity and unity consciousness and the elimination of illusion that we're separate. And it was so simple. I read it so many times and I really didn't get it until I had been out there and having that experience again.
Yeah, it's I can remember when you told me the story. And here's the funny thing about Be Here Now, and I will tell you, if you haven't read it, just pick it up. It is one of these books that every time I read it, I think I got it about 20 years ago or so, and I read it and it had an immense impact on me. And of course, Ram Dass and Wayne Dyer were very, very, very good friends for a long time, and I had the good fortune of traveling the year before I met you in Greece. I went to Egypt with Deepak and Wayne Dyer, and had some really amazing experiences. But as I studied, I think I bumped into this book right before I went, if I remember correctly, and it just changed my life, just like a lot of Wayne Dyer's work did. And I picked it up and I read it again probably around the time Zach was born, so let's call that
18 years ago.
Yeah, almost immediately, exactly 18 years. And it as a new father, it had something, or an almost father. And then I read it a few years later, and I'm like, as soon as Zach can read this, he's got to pick it up. And interestingly, a year ago or so, he picked it up, and it was by his bed. And then you rediscovered it too.
I had never read it. I was just curious about what was it that he was so changed by.
Oh man! So it is this multi-dimensional living object. That's the thing that I love so much about it. Again, it changes as much as your own inner or your inner reinvention, and the universe's all the time, because the universe wants to create life all the time. It's one thing, it's like that fight for life, just like I think our quest and our desire, our hearts, our souls, our bodies, all of matter wants to give birth nonstop. And I think that was my big takeaway when you were telling this story. Of course, I went into my own little world. I didn't get the depth of what you were sharing. You said the veil has been lifted. I'm like, what veil? Who's in the way here? I mean, like my brain just wasn't processing. And you've told this story a couple times now, and it registers more deeply. And again, I think that's the beauty of that work. As simple as it is, it's this fun experience to pick it up. So anyway, that was my long-winded commercial for Be Here Now. Get it in stores today. All right, back to you. So let's talk a little bit about, I know there's a few things that you've had time to think about your experience. And you and I, when we brainstormed a little bit, when we were preparing for this, you had a couple big takeaways and outcomes and results that you felt really got you through this vision quest, this space into your next stage of an evolution or your preparation for whatever your next big leap may happen to be. Why don't you talk a little bit about those? Because we kind of brainstormed 3 of them.
Sure. And for me, part of it has been, part of this remembering who I am and the connectivity is, again, about how can I elevate to the highest vibrational level that I can be. And when we talk about vibration, I mean, I think for a long time I was like, what the heck are people talking about? Energy and vibration. And it's a woo. And but it's always there. So when we've all had those moments where you're sitting in traffic and you're sitting at a stoplight and somebody doesn't move as fast as you want to be going, and what you're thinking and how you're feeling and your vibration causes physical changes in your body. You feel your blood pressure go up. You feel your heart rate go up. You feel your impatience. That impatience is energy. Your patience is energy. Your feelings of being in love are energy. Your hate is energy. And you can pick it up in anybody. You can just walk around all day and just feel into somebody's energy, and you know what their state of mind is. So that gives me the opportunity to realize I have control over that energy, and who do I want to show up to be, because it can change the tension in a room. It can change the way that people feel about themselves. So we must be the change that we wish to be. And I find this my highest calling right now, is to be present to the energy that I'm emitting. And so one of the things that I really came home to was this idea of that my dear friend and mentor, Mary Morrissey, talks about all the time, is notice what you're noticing, right? So we're so unconscious all the time. We think we have a right to be as angry and frustrated and to, talk about our hate and how we've been, not given what is our just desserts. And so it's just to notice what I'm noticing is so important, and to just make a choice to be present in the moment instead of reactionary. And then what that also gives me the opportunity to do is to notice the humanity of others. When I am noticing my emotional reaction, when I'm noticing my energy, I have the opportunity to see who's really in front of me. And just like we talk about removing the veil, pulling back the veil of illusion, the veil of nature to see God, when we have the moment to notice somebody else's humanity, we can pull back the veil of our reaction and find their humanness and their kindness, and allow them to step out of whatever morass they may be in. And I had this, I was telling you about this situation I had where I went out for a bike ride the other day and hadn't been on my bike in a long time, and I was maybe riding 5 miles an hour, and I passed a woman on a very, very wide sidewalk. I was maybe 5 feet away from her. and she was walking her dog, and she had a companion, and all of a sudden she just started screaming and shouting about, why can't people let you know when they're coming up behind you? And I felt very accosted, very affronted, very misunderstood. And my reaction was to meet her with the same energy that she was giving me. And luckily I was on my bike and moving very slowly. And I had a moment to think about what is really, if I weren't having my reaction, what could I notice about what was going on with her? And I realized that she was frightened. And somehow this really scared her. And who could I be if I wasn't having my reaction, if I didn't confront her with the same amount of fear and anxiety? And, just in terms of other things that I noticed and the distinctions that came up for me, and this is also listening to Neil Donald Walsh, Conversations with God, which I was listening to as we were driving, is there are two primary human emotions. There's love and there's fear, and everything else is in between. So if I can notice what I'm noticing, what am I feeling? A lot of the time it's fear, it's anger, it's frustration, impatience, and it sure isn't love. Then in that moment, I have the opportunity to choose love. So those are my two big distinctions. If I ever get tattoos, it's going to be choose love on one wrist and be here now on the other. And those are the things that I've been living by.
Yep. Very good. Very good. We'll start with Hannah first. Anyway.
Yeah, I will.
All right.
That's a great idea.
So I have one other idea that I wanted to share that I began when we started recording today, and I'm going to turn to you, is I'm recording a transcript of this. If you'd like a transcript, I'm going to give you a place where you can grab it right now. I put the number up. Right now, it's to text Vision to 858-434-5316. Yes, those are 54-year-old eyes at work. But yes, that's something for you if you'd like to get this, and I'll put it in the notes as well. But let's go back to what's your second big one? I think we've already covered it pretty thoroughly.
Yeah, I kind of went off on a bit of a tirade there. So notice what you're noticing. Make a choice in the moment to be present instead of reactionary. Also, be here now. Just go out, find God in nature, be present to it, sink into the moment, breathe with the grass, breathe with the trees. It doesn't take long. I mean, for me, it's really hard to sit in meditation, but I sure can sit in nature and be observant.
Mm-hmm. And I'll add one little bonus too, which is especially during these times of being locked down, one of the things that we've made a point of doing is going on little day trips in the car. And we live in beautiful San Diego here, and we're used to traveling. We've done a lot of traveling, but we haven't done a lot of local traveling. So we've been going up, for us, we can go 10 minutes away to the ocean. We can go an hour and a half and we're in the mountains, even closer in some cases. And no matter where you are, like you said, you threw $15 into the Prius, and you can drive about a third of the way across the country on 50. Well, you can go across the country on $50 in a Prius, but it doesn't have to cost a lot. And just getting outside of this noise, and I think what you're implying here as well is just going on a social media fast, shutting it all off. And both of us have really been exercising, turning off the outside noise, because the truth is, none of that's real, and you can choose to observe it or not observe it and allow it to affect you or not allow it to affect you. And that was one of your big goals when you jumped in the car. It was like, nope, no social other than a little bit of communication. I left you alone because I know when you're going through an evolution, leaving you in your own space to just create your own consciousness container is really, really valuable and important.
Yeah, thank you. And I think also for me, we haven't talked about it that much, but our son is going to be 18 years old this coming week. And, with having kids at home for all of us during this pandemic is a complete stretch of who we are. Not that parenting an adolescent isn't challenging enough. But one of the things that I realized in sort of the conflict and the upheaval that I felt internally around parenting was there was nothing for me to do but to be the highest vibration that I can be. With an adolescent past a certain point, you can't fix them, you can't change them, you can just be there and be present and allow them to make choices that they're going to learn from, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, we can, at this point, we're in the stage of our lives where we can mentor and we can influence, but we don't control. And control doesn't work well with an adolescent, that's for sure.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. All right.
That's another story. But one of the things that I also realized is that your consciousness, as Gay Hendricks has talked about, is your highest value product. If you think about how your energy can impact a situation, a meeting, an opportunity, you know the times that you've been on and the times that you've been off. And you know that your contribution to a situation energetically can be of enormous value across the board, financially, spiritually, in terms of developing relationships. And one of the distinctions that I've also really been able to get is that collective consciousness impacts everything also. And that if we are meaning that groups can impact what happens in the world. We're seeing it now, what you believe in. And I feel like so many people are unconscious of the collective impact of their thoughts and feelings and emotions, that it pulls us into a downward spiral. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that I'm going to be tinkering with, and I just had this opportunity come up with a friend who isn't well, is to really explore the intention of the collective consciousness, healing circles. And I always thought this was so woo-woo, but oh my gosh, if somebody feels loved and embraced and contained and knows that that energy is there for them, there's so much that we can change and we can heal. And I think that the world needs our conscious collective vibration.
Sure. Well, I think, the simplest evidence of that is there's enormous research on a massive scale about the value of cancer survivors, for example. People either going through or post-cancer, their survival rates are massive when they are in community with one another.
And they have a support network.
Right. And so if that's let's call that the least woo-woo version of physical proof with tons of scientific evidence.
Yeah.
But then on an energetic level, there's no question about it. And then again, when you think about at this moment in history, the power, the dangerous power of the mob. The individuals can have the best of intentions. You get them together and they do crazy, stupid things.
Yeah.
And crazy, stupid, amplified by those who haven't done the deep work on an anonymous tool like social media, is triply dangerous. And the big companies are dealing with this right now. It's sort of like, what is censorship in the world of big business and big advertising and big money when there's a lack of journalistic integrity? And how is that affecting our energetic centers as individuals and as a society? And I mean, we won't really know the big science for a while right now, but we certainly can feel it, and we certainly witness the impact of it. So that's as deep on that as I'm going to go. That's a winding road to nowhere happy, but it's something we talk about all the time. And so let's continue. Let's wrap that part of the segment up. Are there any other observations you have about your consciousness as your highest value product? Because I have one thing I'll add to that after you go through this that I just thought of.
I think that the last thing is, and it's the biggest thing, because as the Buddhists say, all of our pain comes from our attachment. Mm-hmm. Our attachment to an outcome, our attachment to the way that things should be, our attachment to a belief system. And we can most readily access this by any time we've been heartbroken. our attachment to wanting things to be a certain way. And that, the thing that gets us out of our pain immediately is cultivating detachment, to give up the idea that we can really, really control. So we can have a commitment, we can have a focus, we can have a dream and a way that we want to move forward and what we would love for our lives. But being attached to the way that it happens is a recipe for pain. And I am all about getting out of pain and really detaching and being focused on the outcome. So, with parenting, it's like just being focused and having the dream to have a happy, successful kid, and getting somewhat detached to the way that it happens.
Yeah, good. Very good. That's very powerful. All right. Well, I think let's bring this baby home. Let's land the aircraft, so to speak, and summarize. And
but
again,
I'm having so much fun.
I know you're doing a great job. This has been enjoyable. And maybe one thing I'll say to you, if you've enjoyed this, let us know and comment if you'd like more of this kind of conversation with Vivian and me. We've got ideas all the time. And one more time, just in case it makes sense and it feels good for you to read this, I've made the transcript available, and that's right here in the lower third. I just popped that up. I'm busy controlling this whole machine right now, doing the best I can.
You're the Wizard of Oz.
There we go. So how would you like to wrap this up, and what kind of message would you like to give our viewers and our listeners today?
I think that as Mike said in the beginning, I believe that there is a silent majority, and not the silent majority like there used to be the silent majority, but there is just a huge, huge population of people who understand what hard work is, understand what it means to be invested in and to love your family and to know that love is the highest state of consciousness, and that we're brokenhearted by the divisiveness that we see happening in the world now, and you don't know what to do. And so the thing that I would wrap up with is, who can you be? Who can you be to be the change that you wish to see, and to realize that that is a discipline. It's not just saying, I'm elevated, but to really go in, be conscious, realize that we live an illusion of separation, and who can you be to pull that veil back?
Beautiful. Great job. All right. Well, I'm going to summarize here, and then let's let everyone go. Okay? Mm-hmm. All right. So for you, again, if you've enjoyed this, comment, share it with anyone you know who might resonate with this message. We'll make more if you enjoy it. And certainly sharing and subscribing and doing all the usual social media things. Even though we've got this whole feeling about social media, we depend on it to get the message out. And we want to use it in the most powerful way, in the positive way possible. And so with that, I want to thank you so much for watching and listening and sharing some time with Vivian and me. And we'll turn it over to you. So let's say goodbye. Bye. And one more time, that's right there is where you can get the transcript for this. So long.